The federal court has ruled a key component of the robodebt system unlawful. It's another setback for the government's debt recovery scheme. The court found the income averaging process used to calculate debt was invalid. Last week, the Minister for Human Services announced the department would no longer raise debts based solely on averaging. Let's go now to the Shadow Minister for Government Services, Bill Shorten. He joins us live from Canberra. Mr Shorten, thank you for your time. Now, this federal court decision is significant. Ruling that income averaging is essentially unlawful, what effect is this going to have?
Well, when I became Shadow Minister for Human Services, I formed the view after talking to experts that robodebt was illegal. The Commonwealth doesn't have the power just to, on the basis of a computer program, a computer algorithm, assert that Centrelink recipients owe a debt to the Commonwealth. It's caused untold harm. But now the consequences of this federal court ruling mean that I think the government has to answer a few questions, a few tough questions. How long did they know that this system was illegal? How many people have been affected by faulty debt notices? And we've seen countless harm caused to people. We've had reports of people who've taken their own lives, mental stress and trauma, the strain of being accused of being a welfare cheat. So how long did they know? How many people have been affected? And I think it runs into hundreds of thousands of Australian citizens treated as cheats and frauds, when in fact the Commonwealth didn't have the power to say it. And of course there's the very sticky question for this government: how much money will they have to refund?
So do you think the government knew it was unlawful and persisted with it anyway?
Well, this is a question to be answered, and I'm not just being speculative there. What happened in the court yesterday is that the decision was based on, the judge made consent orders. Consent orders means that the defendant, the Commonwealth, the government, agreed. They agreed that they didn't, on the basis of data matching tax office data against Centrelink data and not going further, didn't give it the power to issue the debt notices. The Commonwealth agreed yesterday that the arguments that the Commonwealth had relied on were non-existent. And last week we flagged that when the Commonwealth changed the way they do their robodebt to fix up the problems of the last 4 years, we said that's an admission they know it's wrong. So if they knew it was wrong yesterday, if they knew it was wrong last week, how long have they known it's wrong? And do you know what's the crazy thing about this? They are now going to have to spend more money fixing up all the debts than if they'd never bothered to ask for the debts to begin with.
Yeah, so this obviously strengthens the case, the class action that's already underway. In the end, these are taxpayer funds. Do you think people deserve compensation?
Yes. The Commonwealth of Australia doesn't have the right to use its authority as some sort of debt-collecting, foot-in-the-door bully to demand vulnerable people entitled to modest safety net payments that the Australian society puts there and just assert that a debt is owed. It's a big thing when you're a single mum, you're a farmer, you're a pensioner, you're a student, and you've taken a Centrelink payment because you're entitled to it, because in a particular fortnight or period of fortnights you're unemployed, you're doing it tough. That's why we have a safety net. And then the Commonwealth just lazily averages your income over the year and asserts that in any given fortnight that you were not truthful and that you've been overpaid. Let me always say, people who are paid money and don't deserve it shouldn't get it. Mind you, it's taken a year for them to collect the money off Clive Palmer and haven't got all of that.
Well, this is not the government's money, it's our money. So how do you suggest, when incorrect payments are made, that the government claws that back?
Well, put another way. If you and Peter were driving past a traffic camera which was faulty, and the traffic camera, all of the fines issued by the traffic camera have to be refunded because the machinery was faulty. No one then says, oh, well, why should you get that back? The reality is that the government asked for money. It unjustly enriched itself. It's unjust enrichment. They unjustly enrich themselves. Who does this government think they are that they can pick on the vulnerable? Everyone knows that this robodebt scheme was introduced for two reasons. One, Morrison, when he was the Treasurer, was trying to whistle up money in a budget, so they said, let's slug the poor and the vulnerable. And two, they thought that these computer algorithms, robodebt, was a good way to go headhunting in the public service and get rid of more humans out of the system. The great irony is it will neither save money, nor will it have to. It'll have to increase the number of humans in the system. There are a bunch of incompetent bandits in this government, and I do think they should refund people. If the government's taken money off people, relying on powers it doesn't have, then what is the case for the government keeping its ill-gotten gains, its unjust enrichment?
You don't think there should be any system, automatic or otherwise, that gets back
No, I haven't said that.
wrong payments? Well, how do you expect that to work then?
Well, why not go back to what was working? What used to happen is that if someone gets a fortnightly Centrelink payment, it's legitimate to check it with their yearly income. That raises a red flag, perhaps. But then what used to happen is trained assessors would go and chase up the employers to see what really happened. Not this lazy system where you get a red flag and then you take the next leap of faith which says that because we have a red flag here, you must owe us the money and you must prove otherwise. I mean, a lot of people in casual work don't keep their pay receipts. In fact, you know, the system relied on record collection, businesses had gone out of businesses. The point about it is when you make an assertion as the Commonwealth of Australia, the Joe or Jane citizen owe you money, it's not just like a conversation in a pub. You know, this is the Commonwealth. Yeah. They've got to actually prove their case to a reasonable level of certainty, and just relying on a computer algorithm when no one before ever did, when there used to be more rigorous checking, when there was human oversight. You know what's crazy? When they introduced robodebt, they got rid of all the trained assessors and moved them into other parts of the system. So this is a big mess of the government's own making because they are driven by the ideology of cutting public servants, and they just wanted the money. And, you know, collecting money off Cayman Islands' dodgy bank accounts is too hard for this government. So instead they just went after the poor and the vulnerable. Well, yesterday, the people of Australia won, Morrison government none.
Let me quickly ask you about the Senate, the Ensuring Integrity Bill. I know you don't like the bill, but do you at least concede there is a degree of lawlessness among some unions?
I think there is a small degree of illegal behaviour. And you know how we know that? Because the courts catch it. This Ensuring Integrity Bill is not about industrial relations in city building sites. It's a sledgehammer to crack a walnut. Right. What they're trying to do is make it easy to dismantle trade unions. And once you dismantle trade unions, the already low to stagnant wages growth will grind to zero. The government's got a little smarter since the John Howard days. There they just went after workers. Here, admittedly, they've done nothing to stop the cuts to penalty rates. They've made enterprise bargaining harder so workers don't get wage rises. But if you dismantle unions, the only chance for a significant proportion of the Australian workforce to get a pay rise is gone.
Hey, is it a fair question to ask why you didn't stand up to John Setka when you were leader?
Well, first of all, the matters which triggered the recent
no, but his history is well known, though.
Well, the trigger was the family violence matters.
Okay.
And that wasn't a matter before me.
All right, we'll leave it there this morning. Mr. Shorten, thanks so much for your time.